either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, the Weird podcast. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And after a month of Takashi Miike, we decided that we're still going to tie into our last episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But we got to go fast this time.
We got to go fast.
Not as fast as people think, or the fast that everyone's thinking of by that phrase.
True.
We're doing Speed Racer.
We are. Boy, the sights, the sound, the action. Speed Racer.
Yes. For those who are unfamiliar with this, I guess kind of cult classic at this point.
No, it is definitely a cult classic, though I disagree with their choices.
Speed Racer follows a young man chasing the shadows of his brother while taking on the evil corporations that control racing.
Now, if you are new to the Speed Racer knowledge, it is important to know that the movie is called Speed Racer. The man's name is also Speed Racer. His last name is Racer, and the rest of his family has relatively normal but cool names. His name is Speed, because we are the main character.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Do their parents have names?
His brother has a name.
Yeah, it's just Rex.
I mean, everyone else has very normal-ish names. I mean, I don't know if the parents have, full names. But, everyone else, I mean, some of them are clearly a play on words, kind of Richie Rich style. But, for the most part, everyone's named something that is a name. Yeah, no,
it's just Mom and Pops, and then Trixie is the girlfriend, Rex, and whatever his little dumbass brother's name is.
We don't care what his dumbass brother's name is, because that's his brother's name.
Dumbass.
Small dumbass, yeah. And then, Monkey, whose name I think is Chim Chim, and I hate it.
It's Chim Chim.
I hate Chim Chim. We will get to Chim Chim.
Yes, we will.
But for those who aren't really familiar, it is based off of the original manga series, and I know there was an anime as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also an American adaptation of the anime. This is the 2008 version. It is very live action. It is very CGI, and it is kind of loosely inspired by the predecessors.
Yeah. As you mentioned, it's based on the animated series and manga by Tatsuo Yoshida, written and directed by the Wachowski siblings. It stars Emile Hirsch, Matthew Fox, and Christina Ricci.
Yep.
Unfortunately for this episode, there are no special features on the DVD, but we do have some sources, because the special features that were just about, the detailing of the cars, the dipshit brother, sneaking into areas he's not supposed to be for production.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kid's movie first and foremost, and unfortunately the DVD reflects that, but it's not a super cool DVD menu.
No, not at all. But the sources that I have outside of that are watching anime, reading manga, 25 years of essays and reviews by Fred Patton, as well as Anime History by Jonathan Clements.
And I watched the original anime a little bit. I will not lie. It's a long anime. It's been on for a long time. They made it for a long time. I only watched a few episodes so I could get familiar with the art style.
Depends. I mean, there's only 56 episodes total.
Which for me was too many.
Yeah, and like you said, I learned the original name of Speed Racer is Mach Go Go Go.
That's worse.
Yes. Very short-lived manga published between 1966 and 1968, with the show running from 67 to 68, and was part of the first wave of anime to air on television, with 1961's Instant History being the first ever animated anime TV show that was aired, and the first anime movie aired shortly before the short film Three Tales in 1960. Something I also didn't realize about Speed Racer or Mach Go 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 is that even though I knew it was a pioneer, I didn't realize how old the series was, probably partially because of how well renowned it was. Even my mom knows about it. Anytime when I showed her something like Princess Mononoke, she's like,
sure.
The animation's a little Speed Racer at times. And you can see it a little bit where it's just slightly flat, but not super, super flat.
True, yeah. It is very much in the styling that was popular at the time. It's hard to miss. There's a bunch of other stuff that's all classics that fit along with it. And while, the live action doesn't go out of its way to, reproduce that look in any way, I do think it tried to capitalize on the, like, over-the-topness of the original.
I'm going to argue against that a little bit. I think it definitely did try and emulate the flatness of the old anime styles, especially, like, in the hallways and the...
Sure.
And the road scenes. There's a couple scenes where it's, like, it doesn't feel like the proportions are right, and people are kind of walking in a weird formation.
Oh, sure. No, honestly, everything in this movie feels like it's done on a very, like, set-esque design. Everything is futuristic, but also 70s. And it is fun. It's cute. Like, the sets are, for the most part, unless there's fighting happening, they're very detailed and they're very interesting to look at. And then when there's any form of action at all, we kind of just turn to, like, a comic book-esque style, similar to, like, how Scott Pilgrim handled a lot of their action. This has similar vibes, but with a lot more action, honestly.
Yeah, and I read, I think, the first, like, 200 pages of the manga before this, just to kind of get accustomed to it. It is a hard read.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if, like, you're used to more modern manga, the formatting is very...
Yes.
Sunday Comics-esque.
Yes, no, very much so.
Yeah. And I mean, I get that. It is interesting just to see that at the time, I guess, people didn't realize that the original animated show was Japanese. They thought it was just a Hanna-Barbera production, which it fits the theme of Hanna-Barbera, though. Yeah.
Like, cars, racing, random people hanging out together, random monkey, Hanna-Barbera.
Well, and honestly, I can see it, like, just looking at, and even trying to not look at it with a modern context, because you can tell with the eyes, they're very anime.
They are.
They are somewhat similar to something from, like, Scooby-Doo, and even, like, some of the clips I could find from Instant History, or a couple stills I could find, because it's now a lost piece of media. Some of it looks similar to what something Hanna-Barbera would do.
It really does.
Barbera, sorry. Sorry, Krim.
I don't care. I say it how I read it.
Yeah, but at least they didn't go like the full Astro Boy eye.
That's true. It is not Astro Boy, but it does live in the same world-ish of Astro Boy, where everything is hyper, like, futurized, but with, like, only in, like, very specific contexts. Like, the cars and the racing, super futuristic. Home life, stuck in the 70s.
Yeah, which is also kind of interesting, too, because I think, if I remember right, the Astro Boy animated movie that the Americans did was, I think, came out in, like, 2009, 2010, shortly after this version, which is the 2008.
Yeah, no, there was kind of a little wave, and not just of, like, reimagination of anime or redoing of Japanese media in general, but just hyper CGI, kid-centric, over-the-top visual mess was like a thing in the early 2000s. There's a lot of very good examples. The, like, top one I think would be, like, Spy Kids or Shark Boy and Lava Girl. This one has more plot, but visually we're in the same realm.
Yeah, I've only seen clips from Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
I watched it so many times because Grant loved it. Not a lot. He didn't love it a lot, but we watched that movie.
I think I was a little too old when it came out.
I think...
it came out when we were overseas, I think.
Yeah, that would make sense, but also much like Speed Racer, which, granted, I would argue does a better job of trying to be a little bit for everybody, it's still very heavily targeted towards, like, can you sit a kid down in front of this for 2 hours and, like, they will be hypnotized.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And I guess I didn't realize this, that probably part of the reason it stayed more in the consciousness, I guess more than Astro Boy, is it had a second life in the 90s when it started re-airing again, so... Yeah, no, it definitely did. Kind of that third-ish wave, because for those unfamiliar, we've had, like... I wouldn't even say we've had a fourth wave. We've had a fourth wave. I don't think we've had much of, like, a fifth wave since then, other than it's just become such a big part of pop culture, because this was part of the first wave. Akira was the second wave in the 80s. And then we had the 90s, which led into, like, the early 2000s, like Bleach, Naruto, Yu Yu Hakusho,
the Big Five,
Genesis Evangelion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff that we grew up with. Definitely,
and I also think that something that helped make Speed Racer something that stayed in the conscious mind even without having more media be produced is Speed Racer lends itself very easily to a toy production line. The amount of times that Speed Racer has been produced in both, like, the live movie, but also, like, the original OG ones in, like, Hot Wheels, random cars, Toys R Us brand dealings, countless. Like, I think even I had a Speed Racer car at one point, and I wasn't even that into Hot Wheels or Speed Racer. It just ended up in my hands.
No, interesting.
Like, it was but it is. Like, think about it. Like, this is cars, they're going fast, they're doing silly stuff. It is very easy to market it towards, like, someone who doesn't even know anything about Speed Racer.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit on it, and for me, I think part of the reason I never got too much into it is because, one, it's very much like a sport.
It is.
And I'm not really too into watching sports to begin with.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But I also think there's a way to look at it where it's, in a way, and even though it's not in this specific genre, there's a lot of carsploitation elements within it, going fast, explosions,
yes,
cool gadgets. Like,
there's a lot of almost spy stuff happening. Like
yeah.
Early 2000s and 90s spy movies where there's gadgets out the wazoo for every occasion.
Yeah, a little bit of a toned-down violence version of Death Race 2000.
Very true. And speaking of toned down, that was very intentional. The Wachowskis were brought on intentionally after a terrible development hell since the early 90s. They had to rework it, they had to recast it, they had to completely change it. It was going to be a little bit more adult-leaning, because they thought, well, the people who grew up with Speed Racer, they're now more adults. They're teenagers or adults. Maybe we should originally lean into that. It had development hell. No one could get it a budget. No one could get anything approved. No one could agree on anything. So when they came back and reworked it with the Wachowskis, they were brought on specifically because they had worked on both adult-based films and films that were more geared towards everyone.
Probably it didn't hurt that they're like, ooh, Matrix money.
They very much were leaning into that Matrix money. And they were also leaning into the fact that both Lana and Lily had worked with several of these actors before. Mm-hmm. And being a writing, directing, and producing duo, it's hard to miss. They had already done a lot of big titles. Matrix wasn't even the only one that they were well known for.
Yeah.
And they were able to snag John Goodman, who, even though he doesn't have a leading role, his name is on a bunch of the posters because at the time, this is early 2000s, John Goodman was a big name. I mean, he still is, but he had a much more like family tie at the time. I know he's leaned more towards like adult roles in the later years, but they were really hoping that they would be able to target just about everybody with this one. And I do think they managed to do that. There is adult humor. There is bright lights and colors for the little ones. There are adult-er jokes.
And dumb children's jokes, too.
There are characters that are definitely going to appeal to kids, like Chim Chim, which, fuck Chim Chim. But there's also characters who are fairly compelling and interesting that, like, an older audience would probably enjoy. Like, the relationship between father and son is pretty interesting and pretty well developed throughout the movie. The only real complaint that most people and critics had was, boy, this was long.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So, Chris, before we dive into it, what are we drinking today?
Well, Speed Racer doesn't have time to frickin' have a drink in the movie, so there wasn't really anything they had. The little brother character has, like, an obscene amount of candy and cake throughout the film, but no one really, like, sits down and is like, this movie's sponsored by Pepsi. Like, so we have water.
Yeah, boring.
Boring, but honestly, Speed Racer doesn't have time for hydration.
Yeah, I guess. So, Speed Racer.
Oh boy.
This opening is so goddamn many flashbacks.
So many.
We get our title card and we're immediately into a flashback.
Yes.
Which...
an actiony flashback.
Yeah. And even though we go back to young Speed Racer in school, racing on his mind, idolizing his brother Rex. It feels a little too Talladega Nights-y for me because that came out like 2 years before.
It sure did. And I do think they meant it to be Talladega Nighty, to like really like lean into the like, ooh, look how much he loves his older brother. Look how much he loves racing.
Yeah. And like he's imagining his racing, the action lines and kid drawing coming to life I think that's a nice touch. And unfortunately, it's those kind of effects that last the whole movie.
They do, but I will give them credit here. They do have this early scene set up, and I'm not a huge flashback fan, but I do appreciate that we at least tie this into the end of the movie. This isn't a flashback for no reason. We do have a continuation of theme. We do have a continuation of visuals. Like there is some foreshadowing, which is nice. It's not just him, now be like remembering the good times of his bro.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's setting up who Speed is before we see him in action.
True.
Like, specifically, like, his brother, his love for race, the fact that his entire test is he just wrote out Rex rules or something.
Yeah, it's amazing that he ever passed school.
Hey, you don't need education if you can drive fast.
Okay, that is something that makes... Okay, I understand that it is from a manga, and thus rules don't really apply. And I was willing to let the physics portion go, because honestly, it has the same physics as Kung Fu movies. Mm-hmm. The answer is none. None physics. All the physics, but also no physics. And I was ready to let that slide. However, this whole world seems to revolve around racing in such an impractical sort of situation where, like, he would have failed first grade so many times. Mm-hmm. I would be surprised that he ever managed to be a racer.
Yeah.
And yet it seems like, oh, well, he's from a, like, well-known racing family. And also, like, kind of a little, like, in the beginning, a little bit of money. Mm-hmm. Granted, we'll get to the whole story about the family. But, like, it does kind of seem like the whole world revolves around cars to an extreme.
Yeah, and even though we do see some of the city outside of that, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, where it feels like an extreme of... It's not like Battle Angel Alita where there's a lot going on around it.
Yeah.
The racing just is kind of an aspect of that world. It makes me think of, in the more recent Harvest Moons and Story of Seasons I played, more so the Harvest Moon games, the characters there's not a depth to them because it's like, I like fishing. You like fishing. We like fishing. Yes. I'm going to go out and fish today. Did you fish today?
What's your favorite food? Fish.
Yeah.
No, like, the whole world feels like that. And it is a little disappointing because the flashback does set you up to have, like, oh, this is going to be a fairly well-rounded and honestly maybe a little bit more grounded because a lot of this is happening, like, in his imagination. Mm-hmm. And then once we cut away from the flashback of him and loving his brother, we're like, oh, no. The whole world is just a crazy shit show.
Yeah, exactly. Because right out of school, he's into what feels like high school Photoshop land. Mm-hmm. It's very cartoony and flat, which...
It is, and I kind of like it. It's a style.
Yeah, I will applaud them for being unapologetic in maintaining that style instead of just... You know what it makes me think of? What was that stupid show with the chick with pink hair and some Waluigi-looking thief dude?
What?
Oh god, it's some kid's show that... Lazy Town.
Lazy Town. Okay, yes. No, it does have Lazy Town vibes where, like, everything's a little cartoonish. I love how you call the hero of Lazy Town Luigi-looking motherfucker. That's insulting. How dare you? That man did so many push-ups.
I don't fucking know. I've barely seen this show.
Look at Luigi's arms and tell me that he can do a push-up. Now look at this man's giant-ass pecs. Those are not the same human.
Yeah.
He's just color-coded.
One of them's tall and lanky, that's all I remembered.
Well, one of them's the villain, so...
I've never seen the show, but that's the style that this movie makes me think of.
No, I see what you mean. Like, there's definitely aspects of the movie that, like, are so much a staged version where they're clearly made out of cardboard or foam, and, like, the rest of the world seems to be fine that the fact that their background is made out of cardboard and just spray painted on. But yeah, no, I know some people originally, like, complained about the styling of the movie and complaining that it was a little bit flat and that it wasn't interesting. I disagree. I actually really like the 70s flat style because it reminds me of all of the, like, Scooby-Doo-esque shenanigans.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people who I still don't care for it, but I didn't like it at first until I realized what they were going for with it.
Sure.
And it takes a little bit because it really is jarring because, like, the colors feel so unnatural. Like,
they are.
It's sickeningly green, and there's...
It is, and a part of that, I think, is to prep you for when we do the racing, because the color spectacular you're about to experience racing, I think, is supposed to, like, have that almost hypnotic effect, so that way you feel as excited as Speed does when he's racing.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, it's fine. I think it's one of those aspects, though, that, like, I think a child watching it would care a lot less than the adults who watched it.
Exactly.
But, I mean, at the heart of it, this is a kid's movie, so I don't care that much.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I don't care is because, yes, it's flat. However, it's unapologetically 70s in, like, the most fun and flirty way. Mm-hmm. Things are very, like, that futuristic brown and orange. There's too much chrome every frickin' where. There's, like, glass in places it doesn't belong, like on dining tables. That's a lot of Windex, my dude. Mm-hmm. Like, but it's all done in that, like, TV show stage sort of way where you know that door is made out of cardboard and they can't slam it because it would just fall off.
Oh, yeah, or, like, there's a part in the room when Tommy Wiseau tells everyone to get out of the room, and they don't open the door fully because... Otherwise, you
physically couldn't.
Or no, you would physically see the stage behind it. So
no, this whole thing has that sort of styling, and honestly, that was my favorite part.
Yeah. Well, and I get that. But also at the same time, like, I'm sitting here thinking of, like, they just let his brother pick him up in their racing car. Like, the thing that's there to make them money.
So much money. No, that is, like, another aspect of, I think, really diverting from manga world into live action world is in manga world, like, you don't care that you're using the, like, world saving car to pick up someone from school because, like, of course you are. It's iconic. Live action world, it's one of those another elements of, like, okay, this world is super obsessed with racing to the point where, like, essentially a Formula 1 racing car shows up at school and everyone's like, yay, someone picked up the child.
I guess. But, I mean, even then, that's relatively short-lived because we cut back to the present and then right immediately back to Speed Racer driving on the track with his bro, which, I mean, I get this moment. It sets up the line. All you gotta do is listen. That comes in way later down the line.
Yeah, no, again, like, there is a lot of payoff, like, writing-wise, like, there is a lot of good lines. There is a lot of repeating themes or, like, hints, you know, lines that are going to come back towards the end of the movie, which I do like. It's just that this movie's so long that the distance between here and the end of the movie is too far.
Oh, yeah. Well, and, like, I do think there are some good editings in using the flashbacks where from that racing with his brother, we have the flash to the present with Speed Racing. It's such a cool, seamless transition.
No, it really is. Yeah.
And, I mean, this is where we start to see the cool gadgets, the cheesy CGI.
Yeah, the CGI is cheesy, but it is fun.
But here's the thing. It took us 6 minutes to get into the action to set it up. And on top of that, the pacing of this gets really muddled because, we get some ghost racing, which is a nice touch to transition back to Rex and speeding and trying to overtake him. And also, like, side note, the cars don't look too far behind Speed. And the humor is very rough and old school in this. But then we get to some bits where... we have Trixie and a flashback to explain their relationship to the other characters, and it's just like,
I don't care.
Yeah, why do we need this? And like, here's the thing: it's not even a short flashback.
No, it's not,
because it continues to Dad and Rex in the shop and some attempted bombing on them.
I love the bombing attempt because it feels very Spy Kids.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I don't care that, like, the bombing thing is in there. What I do care about is, like, we don't need any of this background for Trixie. She is styled and dressed and dialogued like any standard girlfriend. She doesn't have any additional personality traits. She doesn't have any additional, like, abilities. She is essentially Daphne.
Excuse me, she can drive and fly a helicopter.
She can drive and fly a helicopter, but, like, she's giving the same energy as old school Bulma before, like, the glow up and, like, a personality.
Well, at least she has some type of personality compared to the mother of this movie. The mother
is barely in this movie.
Yeah, we only ever see her make, like, flapjacks, and that's the only useful thing she does this whole movie. Or
she does, like, hug the girlfriend at the end of the movie.
Oh, boo-hoo.
No, seriously, like, Mom has almost no lines. You legitimately forget that she's in the movie, which is upsetting because, like, I could care less about Trixie, right? Like, she's the girlfriend and honestly not a very big driving factor in this. The entire story plotline is, you know, staying true and loyal and loving your family. And Mom over here, arguably a main member of the family, is given less dialogue than the monkey.
Yeah, and even then, the monkey doesn't really say much either.
The monkey says almost nothing!
Yeah, no, exactly.
No. I'm livid because also, like, at least with the girlfriend, she is styled. She's given, like, the 70s futuristic girlfriend haircut. She's given the, like, cute little clothes. She's bouncy. She's in background scenes all the time cheering. That's all I need to know. Mom is not even given stereotypical mom attire. She is given boring.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt that it's Christina Ricci playing
Fact.
Trixie either.
No, don't get me wrong. I enjoy her, but it needs to either be Mom or Trixie, and unfortunately we got both, and thus we have no screen time for either, because they take the same role, essentially.
Exactly. But even when we do get back to the race, there are some good storytelling elements here where announcing that there's a hit, or the announcers are hinting at a tragedy and a little bit of flashback of Rex leaving and leaving the Mach 5 to Speed. Watching the last race with Rex is...
Yeah, I mean, it's sad.
Yeah, no, it leads to like his quote-unquote trial/racing crimes because he's a dirty racer.
Yeah, again, the movie's very obsessed with racing. But, like, it's kind of fine, because again, this movie is essentially just selling Hot Wheel cars to little boys. So, like, fine, I don't care.
It's Fast and the Furious, basically. But
for children, yes.
Yeah. And, I mean, honestly, even with... Speed barely losing to the time to Rex, I get it. It's a nice little sentiment about being true to your family, loving them still, because it's clearly showed that he slowed down.
Yeah.
So that the last good thing of Rex is still alive, that he's still the track leader.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Yeah. And at least the cars look good, I'd say.
The cars actually do look really good. That's one of the few things in this movie that really shines.
Excuse me. John Goodman is the heart of this movie, and he is barely in it, too.
That's true. He does such a good job for such a side character.
The moment Pop showed up in the manga, I'm like, I completely understand why John Goodman was here. There is no other person besides John Goodman who could have played this.
The ultimate caring father figure.
Yeah. Which, also, if anyone hasn't checked it out, Emil Hirsch is in a fantastic flick called Autopsy of Jane Doe.
I knew you'd bring it up.
Yeah, I just watched it over the weekend and we sat there, I'm like, oh shit, that's Speed Racer.
Yeah, he's there too.
Yeah, exactly. But it's now time to get into the big leagues a little bit. We get shadowy people watching that Speed has potential, unless they destroy him first.
Okay, so here is the start of my second big complaint.
Okay.
Part of the reason this movie is so goddamn long is because there are essentially two plot points happening here, and we have now introduced them both. The shady world of racing and how it's all, rigged and all that sort of stuff is now introduced. We now know that there are, puppet hands controlling the essential racing world. And also, while not directly addressed in the, beginning flashbacks, the hints are already placed that maybe Rex's death wasn't as straightforward as seems.
Yeah.
Both of these are cool plot points, and I enjoy them. The fact that they are happening so drawn out on top of each other means that this movie is forever long.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing, too, is, the movie tries doing too much with, honestly, not doing any outside of the races.
Yeah.
It doesn't really do anything as successfully as that.
No, it really doesn't, which not necessarily a down point, because the racing is spread out throughout the whole movie. It's not like we have to wait till the end of the movie to get racing.
Oh, spread out? There's only 4 race scenes, and even then, one of them is the highlight reels, and then we have the really long one.
That's true.
Or the long 2 at the end. But those, after this one, we don't have another race for another hour of the movie.
I forgot about this part. Yeah,
because this is the part where we have to build up everyone, establish the household, and super colorful, gaudy, awful looking house, even though I probably am seeing 1 or 2 colors incorrectly.
It's very 70s. It is gaudy. I do think it works. I don't know how well it works in color blindness, because some of these colors are very close to each other, to be honest. It does ring correctly for that futuristic, but also stuck in a time period sort of look. Everything's flat, but everything's overly textured and colored. It gives a little bit of the remake Dr. Seuss styling of those movies, the animated ones, where everything was just so over the top. But
I think the last one I saw was Lorax and Danny DeVito.
The Lorax, honestly, the beginning town at the beginning where she's showing off the disco tree, similar sort of look and vibe to the real world, which is confusing because the cars are incredibly futuristic and not safe, but they are very aerodynamic.
Yeah, very, very Well, I don't know, because I've always thought the Mach 5 was kind of weird looking.
They are all weird looking, but I think that's kind of the point, so that you can, like, tell who's who from, like, a very far distance.
Okay.
And part of it is because, like, originally these were drawn, and you had to make them small and still be able to tell who was going where.
Yeah, it's a very small panel, and it's not like modern manga where you can take up, like, half a panel with a page.
Exactly. Every
single panel is, like, maybe the size of 2 squares or one square.
And I mean, it was old comic book style, so you only really ever had like maybe 5, maybe if you're lucky 7 squares to deal with for like a quick story.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad at the car designs. They're very iconic. They're very classic. Like, if you originally like Speed Racer, you're not going to be upset with the car design, I don't think.
Yeah. And I mean, even like bringing in the brother in Chim Chim.
I get why they're there.
Same.
I don't like them.
I don't either.
They draw the movie out so long.
There's one important thing that the brother does do in this scene is one, like, he's like, oh, I know Speed. He wouldn't choose a big company over us. So like the calls, he's kind of like trying to protect Speed a little bit, and that's kind of endearing. But it's so short lived because it's only that like one scene, and then it's on to him just being obnoxious the rest of the movie. Yes, no,
he is obnoxious the rest of the movie. He is by far the most, like, early 2000s kid movie codified thing in this. Him and Chim Chim, because they go together. They are forever attached to the hip, and they go everywhere together. I get why they're there, and as, like, someone who, like, remembers what it was like to be young and enjoy that character type, I get it. However, I do think that, like, if we had cut him out of the movie, we could have saved ourselves a lot of heartache, because the good parts of the movie don't include him.
Exactly. And even then, like, after we get them established, we get the jet landing, which just shows how much money this dude had.
It's very, like, Jetsons.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's an asshole. It's very rich, showing, like, hey, I can land a private jet
in your yard.
Not even in the yard, in the middle of the road.
This is true. It's very Richie Rich, but, like, bad guy styled. And, like, I do like him as a bad guy. He's very over the top. I think the acting is done very well. He fits the bill really nicely. The over-the-top use of purple for him is fun.
Yeah, he's the cool tech company, big company, acting all humble. Oh, I'd like your pancake recipe. We've been needing something for R&D for this.
We don't want to own you. We just want to support you.
Yeah, exactly. Also, there's one thing that I don't get in this movie. Is like, I forget his name, but he's with Eden Inc. Why is he German, or like has German roots? Because is it just because, like, well, we have to have a bad guy, so we can't make him any. We have to add German for some reason.
I don't know. I will say that I do appreciate to some extent the globalness that the movie really tries to, like, hammer home. There is an overemphasis on having every language spoken, covering the races, and having a very wide selection of, like, teams who are participating in the race. And, like, not even just like we had a variety of actors, but, like, no, we specifically, like, designed teams that looked like they were Korean teams or Spanish teams. So that's my only guess, is they were like, well, let's go ahead and introduce the, like, other nations now, but it is a little weird that he's the bad guy.
Yeah,
it's a little pointed.
They're specifically a little heavy with that. Oh, he's German, so of course he's gonna be the bad guy.
Yeah, and, like, while never directly stated, there is also, like, that tie to, like, the German perfectionism and mechanical nature.
Yeah.
Like, for a long time, and, like, especially in the early 2000s, Germany was known as, like, a great car producer and manufacturer. It's hard to know if that was the original intent, but it feels pointed.
No, I mean, I don't know. It's a weird thing to add to a movie that doesn't really focus on the ethnicity of any of the other characters except for this guy.
Yeah, no, really. Like, literally everyone else who's, like, there to be global is such a background character that I think they all get maybe 20 lines, and half of them are reporters saying the exact same thing.
Exactly. And from here, we do immediately go to the city, because there's no time to even, like, question why this guy's here.
Correct.
And they've got to show the dumbass kids obsessed with candy in this.
Yeah, again, I understand why he's there. I understand the, like, very basic themes and, like, stereotypes that he's playing into. But even by 2008, this was a very done thing. This character was already in like half of the movies that were aimed at children that were live action.
Mm-hmm.
We either rework him entirely, because Chim Chim feels fairly accurate to like the original theming of the show. This kid feels very American TV.
In the 200 pages I read, Chim Chim and the brother were barely in it.
Yeah, they get a lot more limelight in this movie.
Again, they're like the Jar Jar Binks of this movie, where it's a character specifically aimed to keep the little kids entertained in between Speed's moments.
Which is disappointing, because Speed's moments are honestly incredibly entertaining, and if we could just have like squeezed those closer together, I think we could have done away with.
Yeah, this has a lot in common with Star Wars Episode 1, where Jar Jar's annoying. The cool bits are the racing part.
Yeah, the racing's the best part.
And the final fight.
Yeah, the racing's by far the best part.
Yeah. Also, here's the thing. Rewatching this a couple times, I thought the city was cool as shit.
I also thought the city was cool as shit.
Until we get to the fucking Segway scene.
Yes, I agree. My only real complaint, and I kind of understand it, but I also don't love it, is we have, up until this point in the movie, spent a lot of effort really establishing the super chromed futuristic 70s aesthetic. And then the city and the racing are all done in hyper-futurism. Which is cool, and it looks really good. And I know a lot of people complained about the CGI in this film, but I do think that if we're gonna go CGI, we might as well go full futuristic, like, skyscrapers reaching space level.
Make it cheesy as shit. And I think that they did that to a point, but I think, I don't know. The Segway scene, I think, is really trying to, one, sell this to it's the whole scene to sell it to them, but showing their speed and efficiency, no expenses spared. They have choreographed training that just so happens to be doing epic moves in front of them while they're walking by.
True. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just very jarring to have such a style shift that is not based around, like, the bad guys are this style.
Yeah.
Everyone in the city is this style. And it's not like everyone in the city is the bad guy. It's just this guy.
And even then, like, Speed and his family aren't so much country bumpkins, like, compared to, like, the Hunger Games of, like, whatever Katniss Everdeen's district 7. is. Yeah, District 7 compared to the city, where everyone looks like they're in some fucking gala.
The Met Gala.
Is it the Met Gala?
No, it was 100% the Met Gala. Yeah, no. I could have understood the variation a little bit better if we had leaned in a little bit more of like, oh, they're such a normal American family. This is the normal American family home. But the beginning of the movie kind of goes out of its way to prove that, like, no, they're, the top racing family in the world. They've just hit hard times.
Well, even then, like, if that was what they were trying to establish, we're in the house for 2 minutes.
We really are. We do come back to the house. So, like, it is a recurring set.
For another 2 minutes.
I know, but, like, honestly, that for the attention span of this movie, that's pretty good. It is just, there's no one else to compare having different styles to. It's not like, oh, Trixie has a different timeline or different style to, like, differentiate her and her, weird family. Or, the other racers, other than just being, like, futuristic but Korean or Mexican or whatever, like, styling they've chosen for their car. Yeah. Like, they're all super high-tech futuristic. No one else is 70s. Why?
They gotta make it fancy.
I guess.
And also, like, the showy salesmanship, he's heavily pushy, trying to show his technology of, like, oh, how long does it take you to put a car together? I don't know, like 3 weeks? Well, it takes us 3 days.
36 hours, baby.
Yeah, and also just at the end of, like, well, what do you think of my family?
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna lie. I do enjoy the slimy salesman. I think it fits really well. I think it goes nicely with the over-the-top suit and styling, and I think the actor did a fantastic job. He really, like, nails this role. It's just we spend a lot of time being sold on this concept.
Really trying to butter him up. I mean, hell, we spent, like, a minute and a half talking to Jack Cannonball Taylor as a way to, like, say, hey, look, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
I'm not gonna lie, I could care less about, theoretically, the second main villain, Cannonball. Yeah. I don't care about him at all, and I regularly forget he's in this movie.
Yeah, we see him in that one scene, and kind of like he gives Race Speed a look like don't do it, kid.
Yeah, but it's not convincing, and he's
No.
barely in this. And there's other side characters who would have been a better option for this role.
No, exactly. And I think the father has the best reaction to it, where he's like, I'm not impressed. I'm more intimidated than anything.
No, John Goodman's entire role here is just fantastic.
Yeah, and that's really it. And, I mean, even then, like, it's like, okay, we'll give you some time to think on it. We know it's a big deal. And then we immediately cut to Taijo.
Yeah.
Getting beat up by a bunch of old cheesy mafia-looking goons.
Okay, I do love the unnecessary inclusion of different types of movies in this. Because here we have Mafia. Eventually we're going to get a ninja.
Well, it makes sense from, like, the little bits that I've seen. Like, there's the acrobatics car team that's,
Yes.
like, 11 cars that can somehow stack on each other.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it is an interesting juxtaposition of, here we've seen all this bright, colorful, cheery showsmanship, and now we're seeing the dark side of racing.
Wacky Racers. That's what it reminds me of.
Mm.
Wacky Racers was a Hanna-Barbera show where all of the cars were, like, overly themed, and then they also, like, sabotaged each other.
Yes.
And Speed Racer, especially the way they chose to, like, style the live-action Speed Racer, very much feels like Wacky Racers. And now we're getting introduced to the Wacky Racers, and even outside of their car, and this is why I think it, like, just really cements itself into this styling.
Mm-hmm.
Because even outside of their cars, they look like their cars. They are all dressed, like, one of them has snake print because he's the snake car.
Yep.
And he is never not in snake print.
Never.
Which is kind of cool. Kind of good. I kind of like it. But, like, we see him barely.
Yeah, well, it's also like Death Race 2000,
True.
where everyone is their character.
That's true. And, like, it's not necessarily bad. I just think the movie's a little bit too slow-paced to enjoy, like, such, like, over-the-top characterizations.
Yeah, because at least Sylvester Stallone being a bad guy and a Nazi in that movie makes more sense than this one corporate guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're definitely playing off of the whole, like, sleazy salesman and CEO is the bad guy, which was, you know, a pretty common theme for early 2000s.
Yeah, no, exactly. And Taijo is saved by mysterious Racer X, which I think there are some nods to classic anime. There's, like, the drifting taillights that I think is 100% a nod to Akira.
I would think so.
And honestly, it's such a quick scene, too, because it's just, like, man up or piss off. And then it's just like, okay, why are we introducing these characters outside of Speed as, like, the center? Like, I get we have to bring some elements and teach us, like, as an audience, hey, there's stuff happening outside of Speed. But it's so disconnected from getting back to Speed because, honestly, they don't really even tie into each other until way, way later on. And just kind of like, okay, well, now we know who Racer X is because of this one scene previously.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This is where, when I was starting to watch this up until this point in the movie, I did have a lot of similar, like, vibes to Big Hero 6, where I was like, oh, we're gonna have a growing story, a, like, lean on your family moment.
Mm-hmm.
I like it, you know, that's pretty cool. And then, like, this guy shows up now, and I'm like, oh, well, fuck the whole, like, emotional growth because your brother died in a car accident problem. Yeah. But, you know, now we're gonna have to, like, figure out who X is. Like, I don't care. I don't care, honestly. And I know it's part of the original story, but, like, we've already stepped so far off of that path, nobody gives a shit anymore. Yeah. Let the brothers stay dead.
Well, and even then, jumping around, too, is, like, we get to a date with Speed and Trixie where it's the typical view of the city, but at the same time, it's just like, so they flew you out there, flew you back, you guys aren't staying the night there,
Yeah, a little strange.
Yeah, it doesn't really work because their conversations cut short because Spurtle and fucking Chim Chim tag along.
Yeah. Okay. I understand that they are there to lower the tension bar between our main two love interests. Because this is a kid's show and, like, children are not interested in your, like, proper adult romance. They're interested in, like, a little cutesy romance and that's good enough.
Yeah.
I get it, that's fine. However, like, what if we just, like, left Trixie at home?
Well,
we could have saved ourselves this whole scene, because what does this scene prove to us? It proves to us that this kid doesn't like cooties.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just to set up a gag later on in the movie.
It really does. And honestly, it's a gag that we didn't need.
Mm-hmm. Because immediately from this, we get back to Eden Inc. trying to make Speed sign the deal, really pushing him to join it, while his brothers on some dumbass candy heist.
Yeah, okay, I like part of this scene. I do think that the, like, sales tactics are done in such a cheesy way that even the children's side of the audience are going to be able to pick up on, like, bad business without having to explain to a kid, like, why you shouldn't just sign something without reading it all the way through. But it is distracting by the, like, candy-loving child.
No, exactly, because it doesn't really add anything to it at all.
No, and not even in, like, kids need something to laugh at. Like, the bad guy's plenty laughable. He is the most over-the-top character in this scene, and yet we are distracted by the Willy Wonka child.
Yeah, no, exactly. And honestly, I do think that there are some interesting bits here where the mask's lifted, and surprise, surprise, he's a dick.
Yeah.
Well, Eat and Ink dude's a dick.
Yeah.
And we get, like, this brief history lesson, which is the way they edit in, like, the past, present, and future. I think that's where the editing of the flashbacks do get really cool and artsy.
I agree.
Because it also gets us a little bit of history of the world itself just slightly, which, I mean, is fine if the rest of the movie wasn't so drawn out as it is.
True.
But it's also to show that all this is about nothing but the stocks. It's not even about the spirit of racing. It's
true.
Money, money, money.
No, and it's not necessarily a bad plot, but we've already muddied the waters with another very big plot already that, like, now you're having to remember both mysteries simultaneously, and they don't tie together nicely. Yeah. They're supposed to, but, like, we don't get a sequel, and this movie's too long to explain how these two, like, plots are supposed to tie together. So, like, you don't care? No,
not at all. And, like, even then, like, oh, and I did forget this. The brother goes through, like, this candy rush that is, it's so bad, and it's only there just to show the spear hook, because he's like, that's a spear hook. Okay.
Yes.
Whatever, like, report this earlier rather than wait till the very end of the movie when it's kind of important.
That's true. I will say, there's a lot in this movie that I appreciate that they go ahead and, like, prompt the audience into, like, coming back and remembering a good line or a good family scene. This isn't one that I needed to be, like, shown ahead of time, because I don't need to, like, be told about the spear hook when I'm about to watch the spear hook in action.
No, exactly. And even they say, he's got a spear hook. Like, yeah, like, it's... Fuck off.
And granted, I get it, it's a child's movie. I think even this is too low. I think kids can very easily tell what cheating is without having to be told, like, surprise, you can't hold on to another racer.
Yes. But I will say the transitions to Fuji are solid.
Yeah.
The levels do make me think a little bit of some of the Sonic levels. And
yes,
now we get X to the rescue kind of a little bit, which doesn't make sense because he's never met X before up until this race. But also, it is a good way of showing that this race is deadlier than the last race, and that Eden's willing to sacrifice their own drivers to screw over Speed. And then, I mean, we also get some, like, it's like, okay, yeah, you lost this. Now we're going to destroy you financially with IP infringement.
True. I do think it's interesting. I do think the, like, little bits of car that we get here is cool, and I like that part.
I just wish there was more.
I do too.
Like I said, this is just the highlight reels of what's supposed to be the next cool race, because immediately after it's like, okay, we're going to ruin you. We've already seen it. We're at post Mount Fuji.
That's true. That is true.
And it's just a way to show that they're bringing down to their low. And I think it's just a way for them to be like, well, shit, we could have done this as a whole scene, but now we have to cut it down because the rest of the movie's too long.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, like, honestly, this whole bit with Speed and Eat and Ink dude, I can't remember his name's like Ultimate or something.
Yeah, they're all named something a little goofy.
We could have cut this down heavily with cutting down a little bit of the showmanship of the facilities, cutting out all the brothers' heist bullshit.
Correct.
Cutting out him talking to Trixie of, I'm not sure. If you just do it in the father's like, I'm intimidated, and then Speed's like, I'm sorry, I can't take this. You've cut out 10 minutes of the movie that could have been used for racing. Exactly.
Because the racing is honestly the coolest part of this movie by like such a long shot.
Yeah. No, and also, like, it's just a way to bring about, like, oh, hey, this is what they did to Rex. And, like, so why would they even, if this is what they did, it makes no sense for you to even entertain Eden Ink's idea to be your racer.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. Why they like hint regularly, but instead of like telling us like, oh, you know, they used to be such a great racing family and then all this hard times hit, now they're like out of money. It's like just basically slightly implied, and instead we get brother antics, a chimpanzee who really has no business being in this movie. I know he's in the original. I don't care.
Yeah.
He can just not be in this episode.
Make him a background character like the mom.
Yes. Because then it would make so much more sense on why both his brother and now him are having to like even consider this.
Yeah. I mean, it's all just a bit to bring Pops and Speed together to have a heart-to-heart.
True.
Until X shows up, and all of a sudden, oh no, he's the harbinger of doom, even though he saved Speed in the last race?
Yeah, okay. I don't dislike the side, like, plot of X.
No.
In general. But he's, like, we're busy. We're busy talking about financial ruin. I don't have time to figure out who Mosquito Mask is.
Yeah, he's just there to, like, bring up, like, oh, well, we need special racers in our special corporate crimes unit to help. We need your help, Speed.
Okay, and again, I get it. It was part of, I think, especially more heavily in, like, the anime. That was, like, more of a, like, theme was, like, the crime-busting portion of Speed Racer, because, like, by then, like, he'd won all of the World Cups and was the fastest man alive or whatever. Yeah. But we haven't reached that point. This movie is supposed to be for people who've never seen Speed Racer before, and probably will never watch any Speed Racer again.
No.
So, like, why not just let him be dead?
No, exactly. Or, like, work him in a little bit better instead of, like, okay, we saw him save the Asian dude. Okay, he saved race. Or
even, like, have him as such a side background character that it's, like, a fun plot for, like, oh, when a kid watched this when they were a kid, now they're watching it as an adult, and they realize, oh my gosh, X was the brother the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious, like especially later on once the random scene of,
yes,
I think he's my brother.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. No, this whole bit is just to set up that, hey, there's an opening in the deadly rally race, Casa Cristo.
I feel like we could have just been, like, told, like, hey, there's an opening in the rally race, and nobody would have questioned why.
Yeah, and of course Speed's going to it because
it's Speed.
Yeah, and it's finally time for actual action and not just the highlight reels an hour after explaining all this fucking bullshit.
That's true. But now that we're getting to the race, it is exciting, and it is fun.
Yeah. I mean, it is a fun race. We get to really see all the gadgets in action. We do get the nice little bit of X pushing Speed finally.
Yes.
If they had it, here's what I think they would have done better with X.
Okay.
Don't introduce him at all until this race.
Yeah.
And show like or right before where they're like, hey, we need your help for our special corporate crimes division. Introduce him then, and that's like, okay, so he's mysterious. Why is he the harbinger of doom? Why is he pushing Speed now? Why is he trying to, like, get the best out of Speed?
No, I completely agree. This would have made so much more sense. However, I won't lie. I was not paying attention to X at all during this race because one of the characters is the snake driver. I don't remember his name because it doesn't matter. And he has a snake catapult where he, like, pushes a button and a full-ass catapult pops out of his car and flings snakes that then, like, perfectly land around someone's neck.
Yep.
And I giggled so hard because it's clearly a rubber snake that is then CGI'd on top of them.
Oh, yeah, no.
And I could not stop laughing about this snake character because everyone else does kind of make sense. Like, there's ones who are definitely, like, buddy drivers. There's, you know, Speed, who's clearly supposed to be, like, the knight in shining armor and, like, the symbol of, like, good, proper racing with the white car and, like...
Barbarian overlords who use hives of honey or hives of bees to fight.
Yes, and then there's Snake Man. And, like, everyone else is silly and goofy, but Snake Man is the goofiest because not only is his car the ugliest snake skin possible, but his suit and helmet match it. And everything that is on his car is also snake-themed. Where even the buddy ones have, like, somewhat normal-ish cars. Even the bee one, not that bee-themed.
No.
Snake Man is overly themed, and I love him.
Maybe he's overcompensating.
I think he's in the wrong race.
No, he's in the right race.
I know he is, but he feels like he was meant to go to a more themed version of the race.
Well, he's in this race because this was supposed to be his title match, but showing they're working the corporate system of it's their turn to win, so that way their stocks can do well.
Yeah, like I know, but I don't care, because he has a snake catapult.
Oh, yeah.
And my small child mind went, ha, snake catapult!
It's a great scene, all except for, like, the little bits of Spurtle and Chim Chim trying to hide the fact that Speed's in the race, even though they're watching it at home.
They're doing such a terrible job.
No. And even them just, like, trying to sun themselves is really stupid, too. Like, it just doesn't work that well.
No, because honestly, the reaction of the parents could have easily been, like, done by them just accidentally turning on the TV.
No, exactly.
Same problem would have happened.
Exactly. You didn't have to have the little bits of comedy that you just kind of shoehorned into this thing.
Which wasn't needed because, again, snake catapult. Snake catapult is hilarious. The snake is, like, CGI alive, flinging itself through the air and lands on a perfect circle around a man's neck. That's funny.
It's like the Ekans game in Pokemon Stadium.
Yes!
Yeah, exactly. It's a great scene.
It is.
But it's also relatively short, too, because...
It is! It's so disappointing.
We cut to the team losing, and there's inner turmoil. Oh, yeah, we have to add that. Tejo, whatever his name is. Tejo, X, and Speed are all teamed up together. But they're all pissy because Speed's a showboat for some reason, and Snake Oil's in the lead, which... team is under stress about not doing well because if they don't win, then it's going to be bad for the Asian dude's family because they're the only competitors for the German company.
Yeah, sure. Again, I don't dislike the, like, corporate thing, but we were just talking about X and how he was, like, helping-ish Speed. And then I got distracted by Snake Catapult, and now we're back to corporate problems.
Yeah, and not even that, just some random dumb exposition of Speed thinking that X is his brother from fucking nowhere in the movie.
Out of nowhere.
It's just like, where did X come from? My brother disappeared 2 years ago, and then X shows up. He drives like X, he drives like Rex, he must be. He's got
Rex
the fucking...
like hamburgers, and this man likes hamburgers.
Yeah, they both got X in their names.
Yeah. Again, I don't hate the, like, background brother thing, but I don't know which one I'm supposed to be thinking about and focusing on for most of this movie, because both of the, like, plots for these things happen so on top of each other. Mm-hmm. Because, like, I don't think that the corporate, like, world and stock setting portion and, like, the, like, fixed races, I don't think that that's too complicated for this kids movie. I think the way they handle it works really well. I think the way they explain it and the way they show, like, different bad guys versus, like, oh, he's kind of a bad guy because he's against Speed, but, like, he's doing it for his family or he's doing it because he needs the money. I think all of that is done really well. And, like, I think a normal kid could easily, like, understand that concept, but we're so busy also following X, and, like, maybe he's his brother, maybe he's not his brother. Like, why is he helping? Oh, now there's secret spy racers? Like...
Oh, I wouldn't even count on that, because here's the thing. X, after this race, doesn't show up until the very end of the movie.
I know, but I don't know, like, there's too much happening for a kid's movie for, like, this many plots. I need kind of, like, either just, like, a nameless bad guy hosting race, and I don't care about that plot anymore, so I can focus on X, and, like, maybe he is a brother, and maybe there is, like, spy, drivey, racy people, like, you know, the car policemen. I don't know. That would be fine, but I don't need to be distracted with this, like, whole, you know, corporate greed thing, or vice versa, one or the other.
Well, it doesn't even really last that long because the parents show up of, like, Speed, you went behind my back, how dare you?
How could you do this, Speed? Yeah. I mean, I do kind of like it, though, because, like, again, the whole, like, theme of the movie is, like, family, like, bonding and, like, getting over yourself and, like, sticking with your family. I think this is a good, like, kid-appropriate, like, family drama to approach.
Yeah, I'd say so. Because, I mean, it's doesn't really go anywhere because...
It sure doesn't.
We get an assassination attempt via ninja because that's the only assassins in any anime movie is...
Well, we did have the Mafia earlier, and now we have ninjas.
Yeah.
I think if the movie had been 3 hours long, we would have had, like, another one. A different assassin. Maybe a sniper on the roof.
Yeah, throwing Golgo 13 into this.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, like, there's such dumb moments in this fight scene, too. Like,
I love this fight scene, though.
No, it's great. I think...
It's so cartoony.
Oh, no, exactly. Goodman's great in it, spinning him above his head, folding the ninjas in half.
There's scenes where someone throws a punch and it's several feet away from the other person's face, and that person takes a hot second to then, like, dramatically turn to the camera to be like, I got hit.
Yeah.
It's great. It's very in line with, like, a bunch of other cartoony styles. The, like, kapow sound effects. It's very basic in colors. We just shift between the different action characters, like, for several seconds of this. And I really like it. Why can't we have more of, like, if we're not going to race all the time, why not have them also have, like, random fights with ninjas more often? No,
adds a little bit of spice in between because, like, honestly, it just doesn't... while it being fun, it doesn't really do much other than, like, X is hiding his face for reasons. I don't know why, because...
Suspicious.
Like, someone's gonna hunt him down if they see his face.
Okay, again, we could talk about that, but I'm busy. I'm busy fighting ninjas.
And on top of that, he's hiding the bottom half of his face.
Yeah,
he covers up the top half of his face the rest of the time.
It's reverse Batman. Yeah.
No, exactly.
Honestly, the more recognizable half of the face is exposed.
No, exactly. And if someone sees it, it's like, you're not going to put the two and two together, probably.
I don't know, if I see a bandaged man with, like, the lower half of his face bandaged, and then, like, the next day I see a bandaged man with the upper half of his face bandaged, I'm gonna be like, wow, that same man was here just a second ago.
Yeah, no.
Band-Aid man.
But they know it's him, because he's still there.
Well, that, and he does wear a themed outfit.
Yeah.
With his own letters on it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Actually, I do wonder how much Death Race 2000 pulled from this, because that's the big thing with, shit, what's the name? The main protagonist. I can't remember his name.
I don't know. The only reason I remember anyone's name in this one is because his name's the title of the movie.
Yeah, no, exactly. But also, like, it's another short-lived scene because Haruko is there to tell bad news that Taijo is out of the race.
Oh boy,
because the poison worked on him, because he's the only one they got, because...
They got him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's quickly because they're back to the race again because they're like, well, we've got to come up with something. Which, yeah, I mean, we're back to the last half of the race, which for some reason Trixie can drive. It's just like it's explained through exposition that Trixie is almost, if not as good as Speed himself.
Then why am I watching Speed? Why aren't we watching Trixie?
Why
is she here?
Well, and this is where, like, it is a fun bit of the race, too. We're going up the windy mountains.
That's true.
Very initial D drifting.
Yes, there's a lot of drifting. No, don't get me wrong. The racing is fun, and if you, like, turn your brain off about the whole Trixie thing, it is kind of cool. That, like, oh, they did the old switcheroo sort of thing. Which, for a kid's movie, I totally get. However, this movie tries so hard to be more than that.
Yeah,
yet we lower ourselves to just a quick exposition of, like, oh no, she's also a fantastic racer.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the heist gets a little bit spy-ish.
Yeah.
Or the movie gets a little bit heist with some spy in it, where they're swapping characters. And
I think we, like, introduce a lot more car gadgets at this point, too. There's a lot more jumping and drifting and, like, climbing the walls with spiky tires.
Yeah, just a bit after this part, because we also, for some reason, the redneck mobsters are there to cause some action in the middle of it.
Okay, the other thing that bothers me is this movie has such a giant leap between styles of when there is action and when there isn't action. When there is action, it is very cartoony, and there's a lot of colors, there's a lot of, like, blurred effects, there's a lot happening, and you still get a sense of, like, where they are. You still get, like, the mountain scenes and, like, the helicopters, and then there's a lot of, like, flashing to announcers who are, like, getting you hyped along with the race. Which is really cool. And then, like, the rest of the movie is done in, like, muted oranges and browns and chrome. And it's just such a, like, different shift between these two that, like, they almost don't feel like the same movie.
Yeah, and the fight is way too long for what it is. Like,
it really is.
Just everyone going after each other, Chim Chim and Spurtle being dumbasses.
Again, more of it.
Yeah, and I just realized the other, like, side character that doesn't get much of any time in it is like their mechanic buddy.
I forgot he was even in this movie, and I watched it last night.
Yeah, no, he's barely in it too.
But he's like an important character. I'd argue he's more important than the brother.
Honestly, this fight only serves to put them into a dire situation and push them behind everyone else.
I'm not gonna lie, I would have enjoyed if the dynamic had been set up without the brother so that we could have had more time to understand, like, the mechanic friend, because, like, he's, like, not just, like, their mechanic, but, like, during the race, he is actively affecting the car. Mm-hmm. And then also, like, Trixie is, like, their helicopter pilot and also kind of their coach. Yeah,
we only see her in the desert race.
Yeah, and, like, the father is also clearly, like, giving advice during the race. Like, he's on the speaker, he's in the helicopter being like, okay, get ready to do a hard left, keep your corners sharp. Like, he's giving very, like, realistic race, like, advice, which is hilarious because, like, he's dodging cannonball snakes and, like, hillbilly trucks flying out of the air at him.
Yeah. No, exactly. And honestly, the cave part's really cool, too. It makes me think of, like, what I thought of the Hot Wheels toys I had as a kid when you run them through stuff. It's like, oh, this is what they're seeing and shit. And it was really cool. And that's where we get the cool gadgets of the oil slick. They got spiky tires.
It's very cool. And I honestly wish that, like, we could have cut out a whole hour worth of this movie to, like, just enjoy more racing. I don't know. Because the racing scenes are really cool and they are really fun.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. Especially, like, after they've done all their gadgets and stuff and Speed's getting ahead. That the snake oil guy just straight up pulls a gun, like an assassination classroom, and a gun!
Oh, and that's the best part, too, because, like, everything else is hyper stylized, right? So, like, the oil slick is done so that it looks, like, cartoony, the spiky tires are cartoony, even the, like, ninjas beforehand were cartoony, because, like, as Goodman's character spinning around, like, his pants fall off, and, like, ninja stars are going into the walls because he like is dropping them out of his pants.
Oh yeah.
And then the gun is the most realistic pistol.
Yes.
Like, just, they went to the gun store and they bought a handgun and they're like, this is your prop.
No, exactly. It's
not even like snake themed. Everything else this man owns is snake themed except this gun.
Which makes it feel like the gun's supposed to be like the illegal part of it, where like everything else is fine.
Okay, I could totally agree with you there if like the other bad guys also had like normal guns.
Yeah.
But we've already seen several bad guys who are actively there to kill Speed or sabotage his car, and they have attempted with ninja stars, a bomb in a box, and a man who just is gonna punch Speed in the face. And now this man has a gun.
Yeah.
It's not even like a rocket launcher gun. It's just a gun.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I mean it's a fun way to end the race too, because obviously Speed, X, and Taijo are gonna win, which, by the way, he's back in the race because that's what the whole swapperoo was for.
Yeah, woohoo!
Yeah, and, well, kind of funny because no one noticed that Taijo didn't have had different body features than Trixie at the beginning of the race.
The amount of paying attention that the characters in this movie do is so minimal, I would not be surprised that they mistook two different drivers.
Yeah, supposing to be a muscular man mistaken for a small, petite girl.
Yeah, no, and like the most petite. They like really stylized her for this movie.
Yeah.
She is the flimsiest little like wisp of a thing.
Oh, yeah. But they've won. They're not going to be together forever. It's just now it's time for the post-race and their little bit of clarity, which races won, but it was all for the stocks. Like, I mean,
they're
of
still
course
playing into the bad guy. No.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like everyone in this movie is so stupid with race being everything about their world.
Yes.
It's like, this should be your job. Do you not know that TogoCon is in it as much? Like, they're a major sponsor too. Of course it's for the stocks. You were just told by someone else that all this is a stocks game. Yeah,
the thing that, like, also really bothers me is, like, I could forgive Speed not putting all of this together, because visually they very much aged him and Trixie up, but he's only supposed to be, like, a teenager. The father 100% knows this. That's how he got in trouble the first time. And, like, why is he not warning anyone?
No, this is one of the dumbest bits, too, because, like, as much as we know that X is supposed to be helping take them down, they're not very effective at taking anyone down.
No, they barely are in the race half the time.
Yeah, no, and that just leads Speed to be a pissy little boy as he frustratingly goes to the racetrack, which, who owns this racetrack that they can just have access to it any time of night?
I don't question it. Nobody locks anything in Race World.
I guess. It takes X to calm him down, but also we get the dumb reveal that it's not really his bro, even though we're aware it's his bro.
Okay, so if you were a kid, this would have tricked you. This would have been like, oh, that's not him. Because they reveal the face and it's clearly not his brother. He's got a completely different face, completely different actor. Honestly, completely different height.
Yeah, and honestly, the first time I watched this, that's what I was kind of hoping is like, okay, well, they took that a different route. I applaud you for
that. Like, I was also hoping that the first time I watched this, and like as a kid, my kid brain, I was like, oh, that is really disappointing. It's not his brother. Mm-hmm. That sucks. But I also didn't care that much because I am not emotionally attached to his brother in almost any way.
No, exactly. And even then, like, it's just like, okay, so what was the point of him calming him down other than, like, calm him down to have the father-son moment that he's going to have in a minute with his real dad?
Yeah. Yeah, no, like, it's not really a super useful scene, except for if you're really invested in the X side plot. No. And then, like, the last unnecessary bit of the movie will make sense.
No, exactly. And with the way they try and make Pops feel like a bad dad, and then he's actually good at the end, they don't do a very good job with it because it just feels like it's that very kiddish mentality of, my dad told me no, he's a bad man, I'm upset with him.
My dad wouldn't let me eat ice cream for dinner. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very much the same way. And I think part of what kind of hurt it was, unfortunately, John Goodman is too good at being the dad role, especially for this movie. Mm-hmm. And especially for this time period, because, like, even if you were a kid, you would have recognized John Goodman's face as, like, being on your TV as the dad. Yeah. So, like...
From Roxanne, mainly.
Yeah. And, like, he'd been in several movies where he's, like, the daddish character, and he's always, like, the good guy. And so, like, I don't think, like, a kid would have believed that the dad was the bad guy because it's played by John Goodman and he does a phenomenal job in this movie.
Yeah, the voice of a dinosaur guzzling down weird hot dogs.
That too. I hate that movie so much because of the hot dogs.
I know you do. But even then, like, it's like, I get the emotional moment, but it doesn't hit the right beats because
it's also too short.
Yeah, every time we're supposed to have these moments, some dumb shit pops up in between, like,
his brother.
Well, his brother, but now Haruko just happens to show up like a goddamn Deus Ex Machina to deliver the golden ticket that, hey, you've won a trip to the big race, boy!
Woohoo! But also, like, why are you here to deliver a golden ticket? We all knew he was going.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, the car's wrecked. Well, we'll get it done together in time.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's the thing, is, like, he was screwed out of going to the race because they didn't allow him in because he wasn't the leader of the company, or he's not part of the big factions, basically.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
And honestly, the montage is fine as we get, like, prep for the meeting. The one thing I do want to say, it's very, very brief in the movie. Mm-hmm. And I love this. In the background, for like 2 seconds, is the Mercedes-Benz Museum.
Yes, it is.
And I was so fucking stoked when I saw that, because this is such a cool building. I did a case study on it in college.
It is a really cool building.
For museums. It is, if you get a chance, first off, this, just for everyone who hasn't seen doesn't know what this building is at all.
I would think most non-architecture people are not familiar with this one.
So this is a really cool museum. Yeah. It's done in like a trifoil clover, where there's 2 ramps that circle each other and intersect. The dark, or the steel, the metal coated exterior, that's all like their showcase cars. So like the race cars, like the Mach 5 would be in there.
Yep.
And all their ones with glazing on it, that ramp has your everyday cars. And on top of that, the smoke system for this building.
Yeah.
It's the atrium itself was this experimental system that they had to do a test run on that pulled all the smoke out in case of a fire, away from the exhibits and up through the center of the building.
It is very cool.
It's cool as shit. The rest of the grounds, but the museum itself is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And the system that they developed for the fire then got refurbished and is now a fairly standard, like, archival option. So, like, if you have, like, a library archive where it's, like, a lot of very delicate books, that's the new system that are getting put in. So instead of, like, doing water or a chemical to put out the fire, just suck all the air out of the room.
Yep.
Will the people in there die? Maybe, but the books will be fine.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just a cool little moment to it. And I enjoy that Speed is causing fuckery with it. I also don't know why they don't give one to X if he's supposed to be so important.
Again, the X plot could have been cool, but I'm busy. I'm busy with corporate greed.
Yeah, and I don't know. The movie is so trying to be an underdog story at this point now.
That's true.
Because, I mean, I get it was supposed to be an underdog story earlier. Speed's an independent. He's got the world. He's got these big corporations against him.
He's a young driver, yeah.
It doesn't feel that way because he's got some shady government organization backing him for, like, a third of the movie.
That's true. Yeah, he no longer feels like the small fry. He now feels like kind of an intimidating force.
Yeah, I also think it's probably because they also put a bounty on him.
Yeah, okay, the introduction of bounties in this movie is so silly that I don't care, that it doesn't make any sense.
It makes sense. They're trying to take out the one person that's causing them the issues.
I agree. However, like, the way that it is presented is almost in, like, a One Piece sort of style, where it's like, there's a bounty on this kid's head, as opposed to, like, the boss being like, okay, take him out. Instead, he's like, I offer $1 million to whoever can take out Speed, and I don't care if you have to wait for the race or not.
Well, the stare downs are great, too, because in one of the backgrounds, there's just some dude Slav squatting on his car.
Yes.
It's one of the most dumbest anime, like, style things I've seen in this movie.
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's great. And it's a great build-up, because now we're finally to the Grand Prix. Actually, this says a lot of I don't know how much Battle Angel Alita would have been influenced by this, especially with, like, their racing, because it's kind of similar where, hey, there's a bounty on her, they're going to take you out, this is the Grand Prix, you win it enough.
Sure, I don't know, I mean, the original one was pretty influential. She's
an independent against a bunch of other, like, corporate goons.
Very true. Yeah. Very true.
I don't know.
The
one thing I do appreciate in this movie is the little nod to, like, the birth of cinema.
Sure.
The zebra flashing in the background is like the inklings of filmography or cinema, with the bed of the famous bed of the horse. Are all four legs on the ground, or are they not on the ground when it's running? And having it run and take shots.
Yeah,
I think that's what's called a zoetrope now.
I think so.
Yeah, when you, like, spin it all together real quick.
Do this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice little nod, and also, I mean, it's great too. The scene's high action. They're wowing the crowd.
Yeah.
We get the stupid spear hook to cheat, which, surprise, surprise, the corporate asshole is cheating.
I do like the crowd interaction in this scene. It does, like, help the audience have some, like, it feels like you are fine being like, oh, gasp. Mm-hmm. Yes, of course the corporate cheated. Like, you knew the corporate was going to cheat it, but because the audience is shocked, you're allowed to feel like that little bit of shock, too, that they actually did it. I know you're not actually surprised, but having, like, an audience to watch with you does, like, amp the fun. It's almost like having a laugh track where, like, you probably wouldn't laugh out loud without the laugh track. It'd still be funny, but it wouldn't be like, oh, this is when I'm supposed to gasp. This is when I'm supposed to laugh.
I think part of it's dumb is because Spurtle is like, he's cheating.
Yeah, Spurtle, you already knew they were cheating. You're a little bitch who didn't tell nobody.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And I think it's also just a way to show that, hey, Royalton's been, I guess, dissed or shown up twice. First he loses the stocks game, and now he's
a bad racer.
Cheater. Or sponsoring cheaters in Cannonball.
Yeah. Why we don't attack Cannonball and we immediately attack him is a little confusing from an adult mindset. However, from a kid's brain, I get it, because it's like he is clearly the bad guy.
Yeah, and, like, also, it's just a way to, like, try and put Speed behind and really drive up the tension.
True.
And also bring back, listen to it, Speed.
Yeah, no.
Listen to the heart of your car, Speed.
Okay, it is corny. I kind of like it, though, because, like, otherwise that flashback in the beginning would have not been a payoff in any way.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that we did at least do a little bit of a tie-in. I think we waited too long between flashback and tie-in, so, like, I did kind of forget that was, like, a line his brother told him until, like, I had to rewatch this several times.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's just some dumb stuff of, like, that's supposed to be motivational of, you do it because you're driven, and just... It's,
okay, it all ties back into the original, and, like, I get it, we're kind of harping up fans here a little bit, which is fine. It's a live action, essentially a live action remake, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah.
What if we didn't?
I agree. And like, it's such a cheesy and cliche ending that I think while the rest of the movie has a lot of dumb cliches in it, it just makes it even that much worse, especially with the end cap with flashbacks. And
yeah.
I mean, he does win. He's the champion, but
the race is cool.
Yeah, the win is cool.
And, like, the whole, like, car nose sliding and then him just, like, stepping out of it.
Yeah.
Is so fake, but I love it so much because it's exactly how I imagine my race, like, my little Hot Wheels winning.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't even care because it just feels so cool and, like, it does give that, like, anime-ish vibe.
This is what, from what I know of the Fast and the Furious franchise past 3, is kind of where this goes.
Yeah, yes, correct.
Yeah. But, I mean, you're right. It is a very cool ending, but I think part of it is also ruined, too, because, you get your cool flashing lights, kisses the girl, which
dramatic.
And also gets the dumbest freeze. By the way, there is something that's about to happen that our doctors recommend if you are allergic to cooties, you don't want to look.
Again, we could have lost the brother character entirely and the movie would have been better.
Yeah, and also Royalton going crazy is just dumb where he like breaks the ice sculpture and everyone just looks at him of like, what's wrong with you, man? It's just like, you guys are all the same up there too. Like,
yeah, okay. I don't hate him losing it. I just wish that he had like lost it in a room alone and then was arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Very like classic kid movie ending where like the bad guy's mad that he lost and then justice.
Yeah.
You know?
No, exactly. And just also like the dumb little bit of this changes everything in with racing. It's like,
it doesn't really.
Well, what the fuck did this change? You took down one singular guy.
Yeah, there's like 2 other organizations who are sponsoring drivers here right now.
Yeah, more than that. I mean,
easily.
It's not just the 2. We only are exposed to those 2.
We already know that there's such a worldwide problem that there's a secret police force here to deal with them. They're just bad at their job.
Yeah, and we also extend the ending because we're told that X is really Rex. He just had extensive plastic surgery, and I will say the weaving of the background and like the flashback, really well done.
No, it looks really cool, but I don't care. No. I wish Rex was dead. It would have been more impactful. It would have had Speed's growth be more important. I get that we're already based off of an original source. I don't care. I don't care that this is based off an original source, because let me tell you what. Watching this movie is not going to make someone a Speed Racer fan. And if you were a Speed Racer fan, this movie would probably be really disappointing.
Yeah, no, I totally see why this movie flopped.
Yeah, I do too. I also see why it has a cult following, though, because the racing scenes are really cool.
Yeah, no, and honestly, even though we bitch about like some of the style, I appreciate that they stuck to it.
I do too. And honestly, like, especially for the race scenes, the styling works so well.
Mm-hmm.
The fight scenes, like the ninja fight scene, the styling works really well. It's just this movie's way too long and way too drawn out to support the styling for how long it is.
No, exactly. And honestly, it is such a drag to get through trying to explain the whole world. It's not like Battle Angel Alita where everyone in this movie is indoctrinated to the world.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, we're seeing everything through Alita's eyes the first time as a fresh audience, too.
True. And there's too many characters in this that are not proper background characters.
No.
And it's kind of disappointing, and it doesn't leave room for the characters who could have been cool, and we just didn't have time to deal with them because we were too busy following the chimpanzee around.
Yeah, and, like, I'm not expecting a deep story from this. Honestly, I don't care about Speed because everything is so quickly glazed over to explain the world and try and get to the races when we can. Like, there's not enough build up to care about Speed or really anyone in this movie, because I think the big issue is that they tried tackling too much in one film.
I completely agree, because if we had just stuck with the corporate greed plot and like tied it in with him and his like father-son relationship growth, the movie would have made a lot more sense and it would have been a lot shorter. And it would have honestly been better. Save X for a different movie altogether.
Or at least keep him as a mysterious character. Don't fucking reveal everything about him in this movie.
That's true. However, I will give the Wachowskis some credit. They knew they weren't going to be making a second one. And they got tasked with trying to be as inclusive as physically possible. And we've talked about this before. movies that are overly inclusive for an entire audience are never going to be a very good movie because you're trying to do too much all at once.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing. So I've heard a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, I've read handfuls of people stating that this is the best anime adaptation.
False. Terribly, horribly wrong false.
I completely agree. It's not Dragon Ball Evolution.
No.
It's not Aang, The Last Avatar.
Thank God.
It's not fucking Death Note.
Which was also bad, but at least kept some plot.
Yeah, I'd rewatch Death Note for Ryuku.
Yeah. But, like, and I get why some people say this is a great, live-action adaptation, because if you don't have the resources to get a hold of some of the, like, Japanese live-action adaptations...
Mm-hmm. I'm specifically talking American adaptations.
Okay, see, that does make sense, because American live adaptations, let's be real, we're bad at them. We're very bad at them.
The Japanese adaptations, I consider those a completely different category. You have to take a step back and understand their limitations of the budgets. They're very hard to compare to our adaptations.
Very true, and I get it. When this movie came out, and the styling of it, especially if you were the right age range when this came out, I get why this movie has a cult following. I get why people think it's a really great, like, adaptation. I just think that, especially when this came out in 2008, we hadn't been good at anything.
Yeah.
This is the bottom of the barrel. This is the best at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Ball came out the next year, and Avatar
terrible.
The Last Airbender came out a year after that.
Also garbage.
Yeah, and then we had a long break until, like, 2017 with Ghost in the Shell and Death Note, but...
Yeah.
And honestly, like, Live, Die, Repeat, or Edge of Tomorrow, I think is what it's retitled, and also, like, Battle Angel Alita, I think.
Sure.
Those are some of the other ones. And I know people bitch about Battle Angel Alita, of like, oh, you missed out this, you missed out that. It's like, well, because you kind of have to keep the story going at times.
I think now that big budget American and Japan collaborations for live actions are more common, it's easier to get a hold of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're just more budget in general and, like, more time and a less kid-centric audience. We've seen what a decent adaptation can look like, and we also have seen what, like, a just mediocre but with better, like, attention to detail can look like. And here's, I think, the main problem with Speed Racer's adaptation is it's Speed Racer.
Mm-hmm.
The original was corny. It was honestly for kids. It'd be a lot like saying, like, oh, the live-action Conan detective is so bad. Of course it's bad. It's Conan.
Yeah.
He's goofy. He's for kids. It's a racing world, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Of course it's bad.
It's in keeping with, like, the spirit of the original, like, the Japanese adaptation of Bleach, the live action.
Yes.
I think it's a pretty solid adaptation, to be honest.
Yeah. Or, like, even Astro Boy, where it's
the CGI one?
Yeah, like, even though they're not quite the same, you cannot look at these, like, from, like, a serious point of view, because they weren't meant to ever be serious. And so when I take myself out of the serious role, did I have fun watching this? Yeah, I did. I watched it 3 times in, like, 3 days.
Yeah.
And my one complaint is that it was too long, and I think if I had been a kid, I would have had the same complaint.
Yeah, and I don't think Chim Chim would have saved it for you either.
No, but I think personally for me, I've always not liked monkeys and apes. I think they're terrifying. I remember very distinctly, like, going to school one day and, like, a friend being like, did you hear about the lady whose chimpanzee ripped her own face off? And I was like, note to self, do not fuck with chimpanzees.
Yeah, fun fact, one of Suicide Silence's albums, No Time to Bleed, the song And Then She Bled.
Yeah.
It has, that whole song is just instrumentals over that 911 call.
Yeah, no thank you. No fucking thank you. So, like, would Chim Chim have saved it for me as a child? No. If Chim Chim had been replaced with, like, a dog or a cat or a bird, yeah, honestly, I would have been entertained. Yeah. Is the brother character stupid? Yes. Would I thought him funny as a child? Honestly, yeah, I probably would have.
Yeah.
He would have at least kept the humor going for a very long movie for a kid.
Because he has cooties.
He does have cooties, and I would have thought that was funny.
Fear of cooties.
I would have thought that was funny, and, like, him sneaking into, like, the museum and stuff, I would have thought of, like, that's kind of cool as a kid. Like, the main problem with this movie is that it is too damn long. Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. So, do you think it deserved a sequel, or should it have been given a sequel?
See, that's the problem, I think, in general with Speed Racer. It's very much like Scooby-Doo. There is no end, theoretically, to Speed Racer. I know that, like, the writing, like, wrapped up. It's the same thing with Pokemon. Of course Ash eventually wins. It's a kid's show.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to have an end, though. That's why it's written the way it is.
Unless you're like Pokemon 2000 and your writer is on a bunch of drugs.
Well, that too. But, like, that's kind of the point of a kid's film and kids' TV shows in general, is they don't really need to have an ending for the most part. Like, I know we had, like, a wave where people are, like, really fan favorites of certain shows that were written with plot and with an end in mind. But for a long time, that wasn't the case, and they're not bad because of that.
No.
Speed Racer's the same. Does it need a second one? No. Would a second one that was shorter with just as much budget and driving in it have entertained me as a child? Of course it would have. It's bright lights and racing. It's cool.
Yeah. So, I guess then, Chris, well, I'll chime in a little bit. I don't think it deserves a sequel. Like I said, I don't think it's the best live action. It's definitely entertaining, but
yeah,
I don't think it's up there with Live, Die, Repeat or Battle Angel Alita, which I think Alita does deserve a sequel. Fuck you, Disney. So, I guess, how would you rate the movie, Chris?
This one's kind of hard because it has elements of everything in it, but it's also none of them simultaneously.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you. I'm very lenient to give it the good, bad, weird, holy trifecta.
I thought about that a lot on the way over here because it is the trifecta, but not in the good way.
No.
Like, it has bad moments. It's too long. The dialogue isn't very good, even for a kid's movie. It has good parts. The racing scene's really cool, and I applaud them for the stylization that they chose to do. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but they picked something and they went with it. And it is weird. There's some, like, really odd, goofy parts that are left over from the anime specifically, and I think they worked well. They were weird. They were fun. Is this the holy trifecta? No, but I do think it is the trifecta.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you, the holy, good, bad, weird trifecta.
Yeah.
It that's the thing is, like, even though I don't think we want to, I think we hold that rating in such high regards that we don't want to give it to it, but at the same time, it hits every single thing we've talked about on it. It's got some good moments, like the racing's great, the bad moments of just everything outside of the racing, or most of the stuff outside of the racing.
Yeah.
And also just the weird styling of it. I think it has to have that holy trifecta.
I agree, and whether or not, like, this is your thing, whether or not you like Speed Racer, you cannot deny that the acting was phenomenal. While it was too long, the writing was pretty damn good, especially for a live action and a kids movie on top of that. You know, it has a lot of everything built into it. It's hard not to give it the trifecta.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a recommend.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. I think I'm in the same cage too, is like, I don't think I could easily recommend this movie.
No.
There are definitely other stylistic movies like this that I definitely would recommend. I mean, there's honestly, I'd say I'd rather go rewatch Death Race 2000 over this.
Understandable. Yeah, that's the problem.
Frankenstein, that's the name of the guy.
Oh,
the big main protagonist.
Yeah, I've forgotten all about that one. Yeah, that's the thing. I can't recommend this to pretty much any adult unless they're, like, really big Speed Racer fans and somehow didn't know about this movie, which I doubt any of those people exist. Would this be a kid's movie I put on if I already owned it? Yeah, the fact you already have it on DVD, in a few years, the boys are gonna love this.
Yeah.
But they're gonna love it for the same reasons I had fun. The racing scenes are great. Honestly, skip to the racing scenes unless you need to distract them for 2 hours.
No, exactly. I mean, I'll probably make them watch Death Race over this still, so.
Understandable. Yeah. I don't really know who to recommend this to over literally anything else that is either a racing or a stylized or a live action remake.
Yeah. But now it's time for that part of the show. New season and a new game.
Yes.
Chris and I are playing bingo, and you can too. Rules for players are simple. 1 stamp per card per episode. Cards can be found on our socials at TGTBTW_podcast on Instagram and Threads, and TGTBTW podcast on Twitter. And you're also welcome to email us at TGTBTWpodcast@gmail.com. You can use any of the 3 bingo card variations, but each stamp must be associated with a Season 6 episode. First place gets to pick a movie they would like us to do a deep dive on, and 2 micro reviews for Season 7. Second place gets to choose a deep dive and 1 micro review. Third place gets to choose 2 micro reviews. Fourth and fifth place get to choose a micro review. So feel free to share at us on social media or email us to participate. Rules are slightly different for Chris and myself. We only get a total of 2 stamps per deep dive. First to get bingo on either in any good, bad, or weird card, specifically the ones named on us, gets to choose a movie that they feel fits that category for Season 7. So,
hooray.
Chris, what do you choose?
For my number 1, I gotta give it to the architectural rant. I'm glad that you noticed the building. I also noticed the building, and I very much enjoyed that they not only threw in an architectural piece, but a car-specific architectural piece. So under my good, I'm going for architectural rant. And then for under my bad card, I'm gonna have to go with flashbacks. These were bad flashbacks, and there was too many of them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I'm going to go with the architecture rant as well, just because...
It is an impressive moment in this movie, because not only did they include it, but honestly the whole architecture of this place was kind of cool. It was just fantasy, and then they included one real place for no reason.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, not necessarily no reason. It was included because this movie was a collab between the US and Germany. So that's why it's there, but still.
Yeah, I'm kind of debating on what I want to do for the next one. So I can't give the movie makes a hard turn from the main story for no reason, because that's the entire movie.
That is the whole movie.
There's not really a main one.
That's true.
I've got one. I'm gonna deviate a little bit from the flashbacks. I'm gonna go too many subplots that go nowhere.
A good choice, because boy howdy, my biggest complaint.
And I could have easily done Chris is icked out by a character.
Also true.
Yeah.
Chimpanzees give me the heebie-jeebies. But I feel like I'm justified there. They're like sharks, but on land.
What?
They could eat you. Chimpanzees are scary.
I know they're way different than sharks.
People keep them as pets.
People keep tigers as pets. Tigers are closer to sharks than chimpanzees.
Yeah, it's true. They're much chompier.
Yeah. But, anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.